Hello and welcome to the Drunkduck Quackcast. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Tance and Baines.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, So, happy Easter, guys. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. It's the day after Easter Monday today, as you're listening. If you're listening that day.
We're recording on Saturday the 19th, I think. So, just the day before Easter.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So we're bracketing it well.
People might be listening. On Halloween of 2034. These things have a long shelf life. I know that.
True. Well, happy Easter to those people as well.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All right. So so we're talking about Easter, but gotta get on with the Quackcast music. Okay, guys. So we're talking about resurrection, Easter kind of stuff. Well, it's an Easter theme, so we're not talking about Easter. We're talking about characters that come back to life, basically. So stealing that from me because Tance made a post about that. We may as well just feed off the energy like vampires, who are a creature that comes back to life. First, I got to do the featured comic. So Quai the Guxay gave us a great feature called Turtle House Comics. So tell us about Turtle House Comics, Quai.
Hello, this is Quackcast, Goxay, and the feature I've selected for this week is Turtle House Comics by Fur Burton, and it is rated E for everyone. Two road-traveling adults and a dog named Derek finally make it to Yellowstone after adventures across the United States. Eventually, after years of tracking marmots solo, Uncle Derek is joined by younger dog, Nova, because team sports are best played with a companion. Who knew canines were skilled in sumo wrestling and basketball? The pages are inked mostly in black and white with digital shading in grayscale. The cover pages for each chapter are vibrantly colored. Serve a ball in a game of tennis with Derek and Nova and read Turtle House Comics by Fur Burton, rated E.
That was little Quai the Guxay talking about Turtle House Comics. Thanks for that, Quai. Now, oh goodness me, we've got a featured music coming up. Featured theme. Gummels has given us a theme too, a comic called Geistgears. This is a cool name. Geistgears. So, this music. Follow the flow into the machine, clunking and zapping as you traverse the circuits and electric doors inside. Swelling capacitors, glowing diodes, flashes of deadly plasma from arcing conduits. It's deadly, but exciting. Take it away, Gummels, with your theme to Geistgears. That was Geistgears, which was, Gummels' little theme, and the comic is by Emma Cross, and it's rated T for teen. So go and have a little read of that. Geistgears was featured last year, I believe, by Quai the Guxay. So give it a look. All right. So we're on to the Quackcast now again, and we're talking about resurrection, coming back to life, doing things again, being dead and not being dead again anymore. There's a lot of resetting. There's all kinds of ways you can put it. So, what do you do when you come alive? When you got a second chance? Oh, you know what? A perfect kind of version of this is in video games. Like I was talking about, say, in isekai anime. You know, the Japanese isekai anime. When and frequently there's the fantasy versions, and the fantasy versions often, you know, had a bit of a video game influence, like Sword Art Online, Hack Slash, all these kind of things that were sort of like people were trapped in a video game, basically, and things were happening in a video, and it just happened to be fantasy setting. Well, now we've sort of moved on, and we're just pure fantasy setting. It's not a video game. They're just in a fantasy land. But we still have the same video game rules. And one of those video game rules is, if you're a hero character, an adventurer, when you die, you can get resurrected. Just because, yeah, and it doesn't... The logic really isn't there. But that came from video games, and video games is where you commonly get resurrected. You know, your characters, you have extra lives. You win extra lives by, I don't know, getting them in certain levels or stages, or collecting rings or mushrooms or whatever. I don't know. And you get an extra life. So yeah, resurrection is built into that form because it has to be, because you can't complete a game without the extra lives.
Yeah, and some like the game I'm playing has infinite extra lives, in the sense that when you die, you basically teleport to the safe area of the world. And then all you have to do is heal up, which you can do very, very easily, and go back to that dungeon and pick up where you left off. And it is a necessary strategy, because often, especially when you don't have the strategy to beat certain bosses and stuff, and some are pretty tough. You go in for the first few rounds, for the first few tries, knowing that you will die, just to get a feel of what the cheats are, what the boss is doing, what you have to have in your deck of cards, because it is a card game of Magic. So, you have to have the correct cards to be able to beat the boss and all that. And you cannot foresee what you're going to be up against unless you already know what is up there in the dungeon. And the way you learn it is by going in there to die. So
True. You need to do that. And in the video games where you only had limited lives and you had to get new lives, platform games basically. Yeah. That's when that really started. You could use that as a strategy as well, because when you resurrected, you had a very brief instance of immortality, because your character sort of flashing alive, and you could use that to kill a boss or get past things, because no one can kill you for those 1 second or 2 seconds of immortality when your character's flashing and resurrecting. So you can manipulate the fact that you're resurrecting in order to do things. So
yeah,
that is an interesting factor. Yeah, so there we are. Resurrection used practically. But it needs to be a mechanic of those worlds, because without that, the worlds don't work, do they?
Yeah. And I have to also mention that in most of these worlds, the mechanic of the game that lets you resurrect is not baked into the plot of the game. The game assumes that you succeed first time. Like the character meets up against the boss, beats the boss, goes further, advances the plot.
It ignores the fact that you die.
Mm-hmm.
It has a little brain fud brain fart every time you die. Like, what? No, that person didn't die. They're still carrying on.
Yeah.
In that last spot where I saw them.
Exactly. So it's basically like if you watch the game as a movie, the hero that is being played by you never makes a mistake, does everything right, beats everybody, is basically like a bulldozer of success all the way to the end of the game. And
Pure Mary Sue. Pure Mary Sue.
Yeah. Unless you are supposed to fail, where you do everything right and then the cutscene says that you failed. So that's so the plot, as a gamer, you are rewarded with the plot. So you basically unlock it to see what your hero did next, rather than, the boss saying, finally, it took you only like 25 times, and you are the lamest hero I have ever seen, having to resurrect it 24 times to do it. God.
I'm sure there are games that do that break the mold, but yeah, that's not typical. Exactly. That would be very unusual for that to happen. But yeah, that's the thing. It's it's a reality only your character can see. The rest of the characters obviously cannot. It's interesting. And that's not covered in these animations and stories that are based on video games. They sort of forget that aspect.
Yeah.
And if your character did die, they would acknowledge it. Oh, sorry, go on.
Now that I think about it, the one game that treated dying a lot more, not permanently, because again, of course you can restart, but at least made you work for the fact that you die, was Dragon's Lair. The Don Bluth animated game,
Right.
where dying there cost you because you had to go back to the beginning and do it all over. Like, you had to be flawless to finish the game, at least in the first iteration of the original Dragon's Lair. So.
And of course, that was the game that a famous Drunkducker, who was Drunkducker, like all the rest of the drunk, and a patron. Oh my god, he illustrated. He illustrated he did the animations for Dragon's Lair. Now, and I'm terribly remiss because I cannot remember his name. It's embarrassing.
John Celestri.
That's it, Celestri. Oh my god, yes. He has the name of an angel. He really does. It's
and the pen of an angel.
Exactly.
And a comic with an angel.
True.
Yes.
Very true. Yeah. But that was a game where you had to learn. I mean, you're right, Tance. You had to start from the beginning, so it's not really a resurrection. It's just starting over and over again. It's like I think that's more Buddhist than anything else, isn't it? Because you start from the beginning, learn from your previous life experience. Yeah. You're gonna have to do it
I
all
hope that's
over
not
again.
the way things work, but that's a Quackcast for another day.
That would be horrible, especially if you remembered it. Oh my god.
Well, I guess you don't. That's the idea, but it still sounds horrible. Anyway, we can take it up with the higher power. Hopefully.
Well, that is something. Okay, so we do have the other isekais where characters where they don't have immortality, but characters are they're in the. So this is a pretty standard isekai trope. Okay, so there's a character in the real world. They're a loser or something like that. They're walking along a road. They get hit by a truck because they're saving some schoolgirl, or a cat, or something. A truck hits them, and they die, and they get transported to another world, and the goddess says, "Oh, hello, hero. I'm gonna like give you all these special powers, and you're gonna help save my world for me. Ha 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 hee hee. And yeah, so they get resurrected into a new world.
Or born.
And yeah, so that's the other thing. Either they get resurrected like as a 14-year-old or whatever into their new world, or they get reborn as a child, and then they have to redo their whole life up until the point when they, you know, obviously they experienced their life towards when they died. Now they have to go all the way. And I find that is usually when the character is older, they do that. So if a character's in their 20s or their 30s or their 40s or something like that, they often kill them off, and then they get reborn as a child and have to grow up again. And that sort of strikes me as a bit like, how could you deal with that? Like having all your adult memories and being a baby.
That would be a bit of hell, yeah. But at least if something like that happened to me, I would want to remember it all, because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
There is another way that I have watched a lot in Chinese dramas, and I have to say I like the trope, although usually I don't like resurrection tropes very much, but this one I really like. And so you have this villain character that is about to get their comeuppance. Like, for example, the dictator is sitting in their throne waiting for the rebels to storm the palace and kill them, basically. Or their eunuchs or their advisors have successfully plotted to kill them off, and they meet their demise. And as they meet their demise, they sort of have this epiphany that, oh, I was being basically a douche, and I brought this upon myself. Or for example, I didn't understand and I judged wrongly, and that led me down a very bad path. And so they die, and then they wake up like 20 years earlier in their earlier self's body, like 18 years old, 20 years old. And they wake up and they remember everything, but they are back at a junction where they feel, or usually it is where they also either evaluate, estimate, or for whatever reason they feel that was the junction where they took their own path. And so they wake up like a few days earlier from that day where they made their wrong decision that was basically a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And so you have to watch this person that is a 40-year-old in an 18-year-old's body navigate all these people that they knew acted certain ways, and they change their behavior. And so the other characters also change their behavior towards them because they behave differently. And they sort of live their life again, trying to not become a villain, knowing that they were a villain. Like there is no redemption. I think they know, they are very cognizant that they were the blip of the the setting. And that, without, however, their personality doesn't change. They still are the personality that we are shown, like in the first episode. Usually the first episode is, this is the villain, this is their personality, and this is what they do, and now watch them crumble. And then the villain says, oh my God, I did stupid things. And then they, at the end of the first episode, they wake up in the younger body, and now we have our story. And it's really neat to see the same personality seeking to change fate, more or less. And it's not exactly resurrection, but it is close enough. And I really love it. I highly recommend it whenever you get it. we come across it. So
That is weird. And
So is this a whole genre?
yeah, I have seen at
Like
least.
they're a whole different. Cool.
Yeah, it is a genre, and it
I've
was.
seen it in anime a couple of times.
Oh, really? Okay.
They use it, but yeah,
Oh,
obviously it's
neat.
used more in
Mm-hmm.
Chinese fiction. But yeah, I've seen it.
Well, two really good representatives, if I remember the titles correctly, is Princess Royal and Cunning Palace, and it's written with a K and two N's. Cunning Palace, and it's basically the main character that is a woman and she's a villain. She ruled with an iron fist, made a mess everywhere and with everybody. Now she's back to being a young girl with the mind of that villain that felt they failed. So
Oh, you
That's
know
so
what?
cool.
Related to that, in a weird way, there's this you know how I was talking about the isekai ones, and there's usually fantasy when people sort of go, and and sometimes they're trapped in a video game or they're trapped in a fantasy world that was a video game and now it's a fantasy world. But there's another one where instead of a fantasy world video game, you go the massively multiplayer role playing game. Instead, they're trapped in a dating sim fantasy. And that's really weird. And there's this one where this girl really, really loved her dating sim, and she'd play through them all, and she just be the protagonist character, obviously, in playing through. And something happens to her, and she gets trapped in, she dies or whatever, and she wakes up as a little tiny, as a little baby in this fantasy world. And as she grows up, she realizes she's still got her awareness, I suppose, because she was resurrected, and she realizes, hang on, this is this weird dating sim I used to play, and I'm the villain character. I'm the character who is humiliated and laughed at and kills herself in the end. Or dies or something bad. Like there's a number of bad endings for this character depending on how the protagonist does stuff. And she's thinking, oh my god, so she knows what's going to happen to that character in the end, like your villain character, except it wasn't her. But she has seen all the possible endings that this character can have. So she tries her best to make friends with everyone and be a good person instead, because she doesn't want to die. She makes friends with the protagonist who she who in another life, in another version, she's meant to bully, and she makes friends with all the princes who are meant to, ridicule her and all this kind of stuff, and who she rules with an iron fist in the real version, and forces them to do stuff instead. And she becomes the most beloved character in the whole universe, basically, because she's so good to everybody else, because she desperately doesn't want to get killed in some stupid way.
Wow, that's great, actually.
Yeah.
Really, I think I've heard of it.
That reminds me. There was this the Koreans and the Chinese have basically done every trope. So there's probably a lot of dramas out there for every trope. But there was this one that was very similar to what you're saying, where you have this this player get sucked into a game and into the villain body. So the villain is like this absolute female dog that
female dog,
causes harm to everybody, and of course then gets spectacularly killed. And so she doesn't want to get killed. So there's no way to escape the game. So she has to stop being the villain. That she has played through the game, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't seen the entire series. I have seen a couple of episodes, I think she has like played through the entire game, and she knows exactly what is in store for her. And the thing is that she becomes a good character, and so now the main character guy is starting to have feelings for her. But that also shouldn't happen, because if he doesn't get with the other main character, like the other woman,
Yeah.
some kind of like the cosmos is going to collapse or whatever. I don't remember. But she has to be good and also not let the other dude fall in love with her, which is hilarious because it's sort of a rom-com sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's fun. So there's that.
So yeah, she's got to manipulate things. So yeah, the two people who are destined to get together still get together.
Yeah.
They did this in this villainess one too, in that the protagonist female character is meant to end up with someone,
Mm-hmm.
but instead everybody wants to end up with the villainess character. Everybody, even the female characters want to end up with her. Everyone's got secret crushes on her. And like birds and animals and everything has secret crushes. So she's stuffed, but she doesn't understand. She doesn't acknowledge. She doesn't realize it. She's totally like she doesn't realize, which is really weird because she's so focused on wanting to be liked by people that she doesn't realize that she's loved by people, which is a weird little twist. So yeah, she's just always panicking about being liked and not dying. She doesn't realize that everybody secretly loves her, like something about Mary or something. It's very strange, but fun.
Yeah, those can be very, very fun.
Yeah. Well, there's a different take on resurrection.
Another take that, again, I have seen a lot in Asian dramas. And yeah, I have been binging a lot of those. So, is that you have these powerful immortal beings. They are called immortal. They live for thousands of years, and they basically, like, they don't die, but you can kill them. In the sense that they don't grow old and blah blah blah, but you can actually kill them if you are a stronger immortal or if you are a god, that sort of thing. And the dying there is complicated in the sense that you can be brought back from the dead, but it's going to completely mess you up. It's not going to be fun for anyone involved. Either you will have loss of memory, or you will lose all your powers, or you will come back as a mortal, which is like regular human, or you will be forfeit. You will have some really, really serious weakness that can make you die like immediately, like right after you get resurrected, bam, dead again. That sort of thing. And the plot revolves around, how you can not die, or if you die and you're brought back, how you can stay alive, but also regain what you lost. And that is very significant in the sense that, yeah, the person is back, but for example, they are a completely different person because they have lost all their memories, and so they act completely differently, and that might jeopardize the entire plot, because usually entire realms or dimensions are at stake, with immortal beings. So, or in order to bring back a person, you might bring them back intact, but you have to do insane things, even for immortal standards, like roam in a weird desert that hates everything for 1,000 years, and then bleed for another 2,000 years, and or become mortal for 100, 200 years, and
Right.
die yourself a few times, and then by doing good deeds you can petition the God, the heaven, to bring back your loved one, or what have you. So yes, you can get resurrected, but it's better to just not die. So
Yeah.
um,
It's a
yeah,
bit hard.
yeah, it's not like nobody says, "Oh, yeah, but they can bring you back. It's fine," because it is also built up that way, and you feel like, oh no, have 10 episodes of this thing having to happen successfully, that sort of thing. So it really, like, death still matters a lot, if not incredibly much.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very complicated way to approach it, and it means it's not a trivial thing. I was thinking in Archer, characters get resurrected there. There's been a couple that got resurrected as cyborgs. They die, and then they get brought back to life by Mad Krieger. Sorry, Ben?
Yeah, RoboCop. Yeah.
Yeah, RoboCop. RoboCop. Oh my God! There you go. There's another one. So yeah, they get turned into cyborgs, and they come back alive. But yeah, RoboCop. He's a famous example, isn't he?
Yeah, where it's sort of that's the beginning of the story. Someone dies and then resurrected. There's been a few movies like that where that's the premise. So that's a little bit different than some other versions of resurrection where it happens later in the story and the character comes back.
Yeah, it starts off with him doing that. That's really cool, and it's like I don't know. I don't think it's a Jesus parable because he comes back to life without any memories of his previous life, and the whole story about him is he's gaining those memories again and regaining his humanity because he's been turned into a machine, and then he wants to become basically human again and have his family back and all that kind of stuff. This is really interesting. I don't know about the sequel. I haven't watched that. I mean, not the sequel. I've watched the sequels. They were shit. I mean the reboot.
Oh, me neither. That. Yeah, I'm not even sure if I've seen the sequels. Don't remember a ton about the first one.
RoboCop 2, RoboCop 3. There might be RoboCop 4. There's a RoboCop animation. Oh god.
Ugh. Yeah, it was huge.
That's a resurrection. You keep resurrecting the story over and over again.
Exactly. Like a horror movie villain monster.
Oh, yes. Okay, so horror movies. Now, I was thinking about horror movies. Resurrection is just part of the thing. So I was complaining about how there's no rules to the resurrection in horror movies because we've got characters like, Freddy and Jason and Mike Myers, all that kind of stuff. And they just resurrect randomly. There's no reason for it. There's no, there's no logic to it. It's just, we want to make another movie. Yeah, we have to bring back the bad guy. Let's just bring him back. There's no real reason for it. But resurrection is deeper than that in horror films because we have zombies, which are resurrected figures, basically. I don't know, they're not coming back to life, they're still dead, but they're still alive, There's werewolves. They seem to come back to life. We have, like we said, vampires before. They're a staple, and they come back to life. We have things like Pet Cemetery, where we have, the pets who are buried, and then they come back to life, and people who are buried in the pet cemetery come alive. And that's just what happens. We have ghosts that possess people and basically come back to life that way because they get a human body again. We have Chucky, who gets killed and he comes back to life in a doll.
Right.
It's just horror movies and resurrection go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I don't like horror movies, and I'm bringing up that fucking that topic. I can't believe it.
Well, it is a valid point, though.
Yeah.
This should be Baines talking about this stuff, not me. I've stolen his thunder.
No worries. I think Tense's basic idea in the news post and Resurrection on Saturday was it should be difficult, right? Generally speaking, to make it work in the story, it should be unusual. It should be difficult with a price to pay and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'll paraphrase or put words in your mouth a little bit here, but like to avoid losing all stakes in a story or any meaning in a story. Like it can't be easy. If it can just happen, then you run the risk of nobody caring. What happens? Nothing will matter.
Or you could.
Did I go off? I went off track of your news. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was perfectly put. And I'm thinking just you could even have it like be instant, like drink a potion and you're back up in life, alive again. But in order to make that still retain the stakes, it should be unique. Like, for example, yes, someone can come back to life, but there is only one potion in the world. Cannot happen again. So who do you...
one person can automatically come back to life. No one else can. Yeah,
exactly.
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
The other thing is, though, like we talked about before, the idea of so if you rule the world, then what? And it's not like ruling a country; it becomes the stakes change. Or if we have the whole thing like we did mention the idea of like if people can come back to life again, then things shift and stakes change. So that's the other thing. So it's no longer death is the important stake. Then the stake becomes something else, which you can do. But that means you can't just continue on a normal story because you have to make that big macro change to the world. Because if death doesn't matter, then your logic of your story has to be different. It can't be normal world logic anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And it has to be completely unique. Like there was, again, recently I have only been watching Asian TV, so I'm sorry to be constantly referencing Chinese and Korean dramas. However, there was this one blockbuster series that is extremely good, and it is, oh my god, it's called In Blossom. I do not understand to this day why it's called that way, because nobody blossoms there. Nobody is in Blossom there. And everybody, deals with death. But still, anyway, so you have this character, this couple that starts off, and there is whole plot behind that you unravel as you move on in the story eventually, and you understand why. But for some reason, on the wedding day of this couple, the woman is murdered. And the one thing that has happened that we realize soon, but it's not really explained, is that there was, before that, she had to deal with a rival, like this other woman, a rich girl, that wanted to marry this guy, and the guy rejected her for the bride to be, and she couldn't have that. So she basically abducted the bride to be, took her to a shaman, and had the shaman switch their souls. So they switch bodies basically. And that is the one magic thing that happens in, like, there's no other magic, no other anything. Like the entire thing is very like down to earth, except for that one instance where they change bodies. And so the woman that is murdered is the body of the bride to be, but the soul of the rival. And so now the bride to be is in the rival's body, and she thinks that her husband murdered her, which is not true. And she has to understand why he killed her and also avoid him. It's an excellent, and also she happens to be a coroner. So there's that.
Oh God, so she has expertise on death. Oh my God. Is the rival a coroner or is she a coroner?
The bride to be was a coroner, and
Okay.
she worked with her husband to solve, crimes basically. And it is set in all the Chinese, times like 1600s or something, or earlier. And
So there's no DNA analysis there.
Not. And she's extremely good at what she does, with the tools of the era and all of that. And also she had fought tooth and nail to get that position, although women were not allowed, to have these positions at the time, blah, blah, blah. And so she manages to get this position and her man, like everything is going well for her. And then she gets murdered. But also transferred to the body of this feeble, like very beautiful, but also very feeble-bodied female with a reputation woman that she has to handle. So, yeah, it's an excellent story, like highly recommended, very well done. And that's the only, like, I guess she gets resurrected in the sense that she keeps on living and in another body. And,
right.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a clever, weird one.
It is. And there is this funny little bit where eventually her husband starts being attracted to her again because it's her, the same personality and everything she does. And she gets pissed because she thinks that he is attracted to the body of the woman.
Oh, I see.
And she's like, why that, that sort of thing. And that's also not like it's not handled as a misunderstanding drama, because it doesn't really do anything. It's just that she has these thoughts of he's being unfaithful to me basically with me.
Right.
And it's fun. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. There you go.
Oh, I just thought of another resurrection that happened a lot. Kenny from South Park.
Right. Dies in every episode, or at least he did in a certain era.
He used to, and it was never explained. Oh my God, you killed Kenny, you bastards! And it was like, that was a running joke in every episode.
Yeah, and then the next episode he was just back and dies again. Yeah.
With no explanation. Oh, hi, Kenny. Oh, Kenny, you're poor. Ha, like ha, ha. But then eventually, many years later, they did give it an explanation. And the family just keeps on birthing new Kennys, and he's growing up super fast.
Oh, did they? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's like this weird thing that happens, and they just like dress him up and pretend he's the same Kenny. So I don't know. It's weird. Why did they bother doing that? I don't know. Well, I suppose once you've done so many years of a thing, you have to have a reason for it. But there, okay, scientific resurrection. We've got Robocop, like putting a person into like a restoring them robotically. We've got in scientific resurrection we have cloning. So you clone a person and you can transfer memories from the dying body into the new person. That's a way.
Yeah.
Another one is you transfer their brain into a computer. So you can transfer their brain directly into like a robot, a machine, or into a virtual world, like the Matrix, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Matrix is a sort of a resurrection machine.
For sure, yeah.
So there's a bunch of different ways of resurrecting people, and people
Can't
actually
people just be happy to die anymore?
yes, just die. But actually, people are wanting to do that. Like people are wanting to do the transfer the memories into a clone, which that's beyond science, but it's in science fiction. They're wanting to do the transferring memories into a computer so people can live into a virtual world. There's a possibility of that, but it's still beyond our thing. But there's like plenty of fiction based around that. Goes back decades and decades. And so a more recent version of that was Upload, which is a series based on the idea of it's based on the idea of virtual after, like a heaven, but it's computer based, and people have their memories recorded, and they get to live on forever in this virtual world. If you're too poor, then when you upload, you have this like nothing. Like complete limbo, and then you have like a little moment of awareness for one day a month or something. And there's different levels depending on how much money you had when you died, depending on what your afterlife should be. And there's all this stuff surrounding this idea of like classism and meritocracy and how much money, not meritocracy, what's the idea of plutocracy, that kind of thing. So if you got more money, you have a better life. But these people actually wanted to have it to be more egalitarian, so everybody has a good life. It's really interesting. So there you are. Yeah, scientific or sci-fi resurrection rather than magical resurrection.
Speaking of sci-fi and resurrection, and I genuinely do not remember that, but in Star Trek, we had Spock die in the movie.
Yeah, I was just going to say too, yeah.
I don't remember how they explained him being alive again.
He got alive, I think, from memory. He had the Genesis thing, the Genesis pod, something like that, which creates a whole new planet, a whole new world.
Oh, okay.
Basically. And it grew a new Spock because they laid him to rest on this somewhere where there's this Genesis pod. They weren't intending to resurrect him. They didn't know that would happen. But they laid him to rest in this place because, that movie ended and, blah, blah, blah. And the Genesis pod was there and it grew a new Spock. Basically all grew him again. Okay. That's from my memory.
Right.
That might be terrible because my memory is bad.
Yeah. There also was an element where his consciousness was in the body of bones of Dr. McCoy. So there was the element of his consciousness was there. They kind of set that up subtly. And then, the technology of the Genesis planet that creates a new planet from a dead planet. That was all there. And then Spock died. It was a beautiful death for a fictional character. And then they took the entire movie was like, I don't remember it well, but it was the search for Spock and the effort to resurrect him. And it took a whole movie to do it, So.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's how you do things.
Yeah. I don't think anyone complained about it because of that.
No.
Now what we really need to do is resurrect Spock for real because Leonard Nimoy is dead. How do we bring Leonard back? That's the thing.
The thing is,
I'm not talking about.
Back? Or will he?
What's that?
Pissed? Does he want to be back, or will he be pissed because?
We don't care. We just want Spock. So. Well, I mean, there's the other way of doing it, the resurrection, which is to go back along all the movies, the TV series, Mission Impossible, whatever he was in, and record him and then do the AI
No,
and bring him back that way. See, none of us like that, but that has happened to actors. That has happened to Carrie Fisher in Star Wars. She got resurrected for a couple of things. There's other actors too. I mean, there's people who like Marilyn Monroe.
I think Michael Jackson as well.
And others. Yeah.
I still
Michael
feel
Jackson
that
more
this.
for performances.
I do feel that this is deeply disrespectful. Like, let me just open your tomb and get your body and play puppets with it. You know.
Yeah.
No.
That's dodgy. I don't think I agree with the idea of bringing actors back. I know. I don't agree with the idea of bringing actors back. I don't want to see animated versions, fake versions of actors. I want to see either the real actor or nothing.
Exactly.
And I don't even want to see animated versions of real actors who are alive. Yeah, sure, you can make them look younger. That's all right. You can get the actor and you can show the younger version, you know, like Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones, or, you know, the guy from Tron. I can't remember his name.
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges, yeah. So you made him look younger, and in that, whatever. That's all right. But I don't want to see animated versions of actors that are just done for the sake of it. Oh, they couldn't have, you know, this scene again because, you know, we're over budget and this actor's sort of gone home for the day, and I will just animate that. That's what they're starting to do now. That's freaking awful.
Yeah.
It looks fake. It looks weird. Don't do it. And, you know, they're not being paid properly for their roles, so...
Exactly. I think it's very dystopian, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, a big no to that kind of resurrection.
No.
Because that's a weird
That's
corporate... It's a big no. Yeah. That's a weird corporate zombification, basically.
Exactly. That's dinner at weekend at Bernie's.
At Bernie's, oh my god. Well, that's a weird resurrection. So he's not actually resurrected, but he is sort of resurrected. It's weird. But yeah, it's just a puppet. Just a dead puppet.
Exactly.
That's not a bad film.
Great
I
movie.
saw it again.
But it was a hilarious film. Right.
It's so funny.
Yeah, surprisingly, I thought it would just be a
We
waste
should mention
of time.
one of our faves, A Waste of Time. What was that?
No, I thought Weekend Birdies would just be a waste. It was just a silly throwaway movie, but it was worth it. Anyway, so go on.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to mention one of our faves, Princess Bride. Got a resurrection in there.
He gets resurrected. But he's not dead, he's only mostly dead.
Yeah.
But he was basically dead.
He was dead.
He was. He was fully dead.
Yeah.
And he got brought back to life by the miracle worker.
Exactly. And
So good.
he came back, but it wasn't like before. He basically was without much ability to control his body and stuff. So he came back.
Paralyzed.
Yeah.
But
He's
still,
fully paralyzed.
And it wasn't
but he
even
pretended. Sorry.
He didn't even return at the end of the movie to have some epic sword fight or something. I mean, you're left to sort of believe he will recover and he'll be fine or whatever. But in the movie, he doesn't come back to full capacity. So really well done.
yeah.
Yeah, we actually get to see what's his name? Inigo Montoya have the big sword fight, which we were sort of
Right,
waiting
which makes
for.
sense. Yeah.
And I really like how Wesley just blabs his way to the end, to success.
Yeah. It's great. Surprising.
Lying on a bed, it was so good. He's like a fake version of Errol Flynn. Like he was all the bravado, pretending to be Errol Flynn. It was so good. Just genius. Best character, one of the best protagonists in fiction.
Yeah.
And he's resurrected. We got resurrected twice, actually. Do you realize that?
Oh, well, was he dead? He was never killed by the Dread Pirate.
Once physically resurrected in the end, but in the first version, he was like everyone thought he was dead. Like Princess Buttercup thought he was dead, and here he is. He's back, and that's a huge plot point. That, oh my God, I'm the Dread Pirate Roberts, but I'm actually your Wesley
guy
as well. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. The 2-time resurrection, and that's arguably the bigger resurrection, the first one in the beginning, because she thought he was dead, and she was like, the only reason she, agreed to be the princess or whatever was because she thought he had died.
Yeah, and I think Humperdinck forced her in a way. I don't remember now, but I think that she was planning to kill herself right after the wedding.
Yeah, I don't think she chose, but he was the prince, and he's allowed to choose his bride. She had no say in the matter. But yeah, obviously, if Wesley was still around, she would have still been with him.
Exactly.
Anyway, I think it all worked out. I don't want to spoil it, but I think you'll be okay.
I think it worked out.
Pretty sure you'll be all right. There is like a metaphorical death, though, that happens in a lot of stories, and it's important. I think we're running out of time to go into it, but I think there's like a classic story structure where people go into the underworld and they learn lessons or something. I don't know enough about it.
Oh, yeah.
But I do know that like, sort of the suggestion of death or someone dying or seems to be dead, and then at least a metaphorical rebirth is an important part of making a story powerful. Just wanted to add that in.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, so like in What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, that very serious story about the person who dies but is sort of resurrected in some sort of afterlife, and he has to try and find his wife in her version of the afterlife. It's a very beautiful film.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a pretty cool example. So definitely quite an interesting take on the whole death and resurrection thing, because that is more a biblical sort of resurrection, because he's in an afterlife, but it's still him. He's not dead or not a spirit or not being reborn. He is existing within that.
Right.
Well, we've covered a lot of different aspects of resurrection. So happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Yes. Lovely. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. This has been Quackcast number 736. We've had Tance and Baines and Ozen Ocean speaking to you from the afterlife.
Have indeed.
And was that Alekos?
Yes.
Hello, Alekos. Alekos just wants to butt in. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.